Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here at this early hour. Glad to see you. Before I start, I would like to share a bit bad news. I was supposed to have a co-speaker today, and her name was here on the right, but she injured her knee just a couple of days before this event and couldn't attend. And her name is Caroline Wong. I will show her credentials in a moment. So if you were here for her, we're sorry, she is not able to join, but she was very kind to share all her knowledge and help me prepare this presentation, give her notes. So I have all the details that she would normally share with you, and we won't talk about it. Today I'm going to share about soft security maturity models, OWASP, SAM, and BSIMM. We're going to look at, compare them, look at details. But before I start, do we have any practitioners using already OWASP SAM here? So I know what's the audience we have. All right, some people looked into that. And any people try to do assessment using BSIMM? Okay, great. And who knows what is software security maturity model? Okay, I know more or less how deep I should go. Thank you so much. Let's see. Okay, first disclaimer, all this opinion is not from RSA or my employer. It's purely mine and Caroline's, but it's a conversation. I recommend you that you join also the link for the chat afterwards. I will be happy to continue the talk with you. It's a community. If you have any opinion, express it afterwards with the questions, or come afterwards and let's talk about it. And I will be happy to help you to use these frameworks at your companies afterwards. Here, my name is Nariman Akatagiv. I'm myself about 22 years in software development from my childhood. I'm not so old. But last 8-9 years, I'm in application security domain. I started actually from doing assessment of BSIMM in our organization, and we have about 27,000 people, 8,000 developers, so it was lots of assessments. Later, I moved towards OWASP SAM, and Caroline Wong, she did lots of assessments using BSIMM, more than 30 of all kind of different companies, and she's the author of a book on metrics. She has lots of LinkedIn learning courses. She's an amazing person. If you don't know her yet, check her out on LinkedIn and her content. She's really great. Now, if you work for somewhat serious software company, probably you would have in-house secure software development lifecycle policy, which describes what your developers and development teams are supposed to be doing during the development lifecycle. And here I put all kind of activities that you could find. The goal here is not to show you what you're supposed to be doing, just to show what you're supposed to be doing, from governance to build, secure build, and runtime. It's a lot. But having this policy, do you think it's enough to be qualified, to be certified? Or if you want to get ready for, let's say, European Cyber Resilience Act, which was just accepted this year by European Commission, and in a 15-18 months, if you cannot demonstrate that you develop software in a secure by design way, you won't be able to sell in Europe. So if you are having critical infrastructure, some critical categories of software, you will be audited, but otherwise you still have to demonstrate and self-audit and document it. But having this policy is not enough. So how are you going, if you go to the floor and you talk with developers and you ask around who is actually doing this, you'll be disappointed, because these global policies that you have on your wikis and the knowledge bases, they represent the perfect world scenario. If you actually approach, it's done not always on ad hoc basis. Sometimes it's forgotten, people not aware of that, but it's good enough if you want to show auditors or for sales or tenders that you do have a policy. But these policies don't protect actually your products. To make better, to actually help you to get where you want to be, because typically audit is to measure where you are, to help you to plan smaller steps and reach where you want to be, we have maturity models. And these are frameworks that help you to assess. You go scope by scope. You can do assessment per department, per product team, per product, and see what's actually going on there with security activities, and then prioritize and plan small achievable steps to the target you have. And your target might be to be ready for ISO certification, maybe for NIST audit, or for European Cyber Resilience Act. And we have two major frameworks today. One is OWASP SAM, which is driven by OWASP community, and another one is BSIMM, which is supported at the moment with a big cybersecurity company. I will not name it, you can easily find it out. They're a great company and great support for this standard as well. They do have same roots. They started with a similar people that had initial draft, and later they branched a little bit. If we look into BSIMM first, BSIMM is a descriptive framework, and by that I mean that it describes your situation compared to the other companies. So imagine that you step in a neighborhood and you're just checking how many households have a vacuum cleaner, and then the analyst will say 5 out of 10 households have a vacuum cleaner. And you who are thinking about cleaning the house, you know, all right, typically people use vacuum cleaners for that. But this analyst would not tell you that you're supposed to have vacuum cleaner, and it will not tell you that's the only way to do the cleaning. You have alternatives. So in BSIMM, they have about 120 different activities, and they will tell you exactly in your industry what other companies are doing. And they will come up with a very detailed report telling where you are, and for every category of those 120 activities, they will show what is the top 25 companies doing, that's the top line, what is the middle 50, the square part, the purple part, what are they doing in that category of activities, what their average score, and what is the bottom doing. And you a bit can estimate. So when I would do BSIMM assessment, if I see that most companies are doing that particular activity, I would focus also first on that. I will assume it's easy to achieve, and there should be maturity in that area, so it will help me with the prioritization. And BSIMM gives you that visibility. And of course, since it's supported by a big company, they come with the advices, with the proper insights, how other companies are doing, and you can reach your maturity. It's very useful. Now, if you look at SAM model, and SAM is not descriptive, it does not describe the situation, it is prescriptive. It explains you what actually you're supposed to be doing. Not just showing the situation and how others are doing, but it's showing the right way to do stuff is this. And it has also like about 90 activities grouped together in the business functions from governance, design, implementation, verification, operations. Each of them have some activities described, and every that small box have also 3 levels of sub-activities, from very easy to like normal way to do stuff and more expert side. I recommend to go to owaspsam.org, where you have actually the model that goes page for each activity in a very detailed description. And this model is supposed to be explaining you how to do it the best, and this activity is community driven. So if you have opinion, or if you are expert in any of these activities, you can go there and check what people recommend, and if you don't agree, you can contribute. It's in GitHub, and join the Slack and talk with us about it. Coming back to BSIMM, I mentioned that they have about 120 different activities. Every activity on itself is very clear, and with a clear question, you can answer yes or no, whether you're doing that or not. And there, for every category of activities, like strategy and metrics is one of those columns that you saw in the beginning, they divided them into 3 different levels. And these levels do not represent progression, so they don't not that they're recommending to go at level 1 first and then 2 and 3. It represents the frequency of this activity in the industry. It means that all these 3 activities in level 1, they are the most commonly implemented in industry. And then level 2 and level 3 ones that less frequently are implemented. And when you assess yourself, then you also try to see, like for example here, publishing processes, it says 80% of the BCM community who was assessed, more than 120 big corporates, they do that activity. And at the bottom, marketing and culture program, only like 45. But this is example numbers, it's not exactly correct. But just to give you an idea. And for each activity, there are some criteria that helps you to clearly, very correctly say yes or no, but it's not for public use. The BCM organization themselves, they have some cheat sheets for themselves. So you can do self-assessment, but if you want to have it professionally and consistent, you hire them, and they have all the documentation that helps them to do the right assessment for you. Now, if you look to SAM, it's a bit different. It's not yes, no, and whether you're doing this. It's more granular, and they also have levels for every activity. For example, for the same level 1 strategy metrics, create and promote. Levels here represent the proper path that according to the SAM community you should be taking. And in that path, at level 1, that's the bare minimum that we recommend you to do. At level 2, that would be that a bit decent way, and level 3 is the pro level. Just to give you an example, if you want to protect your third-party components, level 1 would be, do you have possibility to find what you're using at all and see if there are no vulnerabilities in those components? That's bare minimum. You don't have any tools, but you do have possibility to find if you have a problem. And then level 2 would be, okay, are you creating SBOM files? Can you do it somewhat automatically? Do you have some SCA tool? That would be like proper way. And level 3 would be, do you actually have whitelisting, and do you check and verify which components are going to be used before they are added to the project? So for every activity, we divide it in this way, so that the bare minimum, the proper way, and like pro level. And for every activity, we also publish exact criteria. So if you can say yes to each of the criteria questions, then you can say one of the yes answers. So if you say no to any of them, then the answer is no. But if all of them are yes, then still you have other levels of answers. For example, those can represent recurrence. Are you doing this? Yes, you're doing, but on ad hoc basis, sometimes consistently, or are you doing this activity for all the apps you have, or maybe half of them, or most of them? So there are 2 different areas that how you're assessing, and it creates a rating, which can go from 0 to 1, and for all 3 activities in this category, it will sum up to from 0 to 3, and as a result, you get a nice chart showing where are you as you do assessment. But this is the beginning, so this only helps you to understand where are you, and what are the next steps is to plan, and OWASM also has tooling that helps you to make prioritization, make next steps in your path to where you want to be. If I look a bit into details of them, so there are 4 high-level domains on BCM and 5 in OWASP SAM, and we call them business function. I would say the only difference is SAM covers a bit more of the operation, but be aware that both of them focus on the development life cycle. So most activities are very detailed for the R&D teams, for development teams, and if you really want to assess your operations in detail, there are other frameworks in NIST that help you to do that. But this is one is very useful if you go to development teams and say, hey guys, I want to understand what's going on, what are you actually doing, what you're not doing, and both of them fit very well. These are high-level activities, and if we look a bit deeper at sub-activities, you have in total in BCM 120, in SAM 90, and let's see, for example, in governance side, both of them are very similar. In governance, it's about having right strategy, having right risk profiles defined, and having proper trainings, education for developers. Then you have intelligence or design in SAM, where you do define your security requirements, your secure architecture, These are activities you do before implementation, threat modeling, they're all here. Next one, SSTLC touchpoint. These ones are similar to verification at OWASP SAM. So you do code review, you do testing, you do architecture analysis. And on the SAM side, we have implementation representing it, which defines, are you building your code securely? Are only people who are supposed to have access to your build pipeline do have access? Who can deploy? Are your deployment steps reproducible? Did you document it well? How do you push the secrets? And all these activities touch upon those. Then we have verification. In SAM, it's a separate category, which purely about post-deployment, post-implementation activities to verify things, to test, and operations. Now, it might not fit 100% what you're doing. Maybe you need a bit more, a bit less. If you have an on-premise solution, perhaps operations will be out of scope, and you will not know, or should I score here 0? Should I score all 3, like at the top, because I don't care. I don't operate. I'm just giving on-premise software, and it's customer's problem. The fact is that all models are wrong, but some are useful. These both models, they simplify the secure software development lifecycle view. And when I do assessment, always I would have a question, yeah, but we are not doing this way, this doesn't make sense, it's a question for us. But these tools are for you to improve yourself, to see what you're doing and to plan. And as long as you make it useful for yourself and interpret the question that is useful for you, that's fine, that's good. And even if I'm not sure if I'm doing that activity properly or not, should I say yes, should I say no, I would typically say, let's just write no for now, because I think it should have point of attention. I should verify if it's documented well. I think we're doing this activity, but I'm not pretty sure how or where is documentation. So I'll just put a no as an assessment and put a note, let's verify or let's communicate so everybody's aware we actually have it, so we do it properly. And then we do reassessment 3 months later to see how we improved. And it helped me to see and improve things. There are other factors that we need to consider. Now, the purpose, I told, one is descriptive. It just helps you to compare yourself to the market and take appropriate decisions and show to the board, look, everybody is doing these activities, but we are not. Maybe we should allocate some budget, some time to investigate and also do it. It can be a strong selling point. But on SAM, it's prescriptive. Maybe you are already convinced that you should be doing that, and you need some guidance and help how to document your SSTLC and how to actually implement activities. So you can go there and see how people recommend you to do that. Availability. One is supported by corporate. It's paid for. And some companies might like it. If you work for a big corporate and you are application engineer, it can be challenging just to say, hey guys, trust me, I will do assessment for full corporate. Sometimes people want to have consistency and somebody behind this assessment. So companies might prefer BSIMM. That's totally valid. And for SAM, it's OWASP flagship project. There's a big support from community, but you need to do it yourself. Of course, there are some SAM practitioners. If you go to owaspsam.org and you want to hire some freelancers, some companies for you, that's possible. But those practitioners do that not to make, they contribute back to SAM, of course, but not to make money. Their goal is to help our industry to mature. And we also want it to be the community project, that you also use it and you contribute back, and it's about us doing this. Tooling, the BSIMM has proprietary tools. As they do assessment, they create beautiful reports, like a different representations of your maturity for each of your domains. And on SAM, there are open source tools. There's OpenSAMI, Samwise, which has some nice UI that you can go and click and do assessment, create extra scopes, because you will probably have multiple scopes that you want to assess separately. As you're not supposed to give same goal for teams that have different maturities. If you say that, guys, everybody next year should implement SCA, but one department already has good SCA adoption and other not, this department will do nothing. And other one will have a big challenge because they have a huge code base in C++ and they have to find a way how to create properly SBOM file. So it doesn't make sense to have one object for all, but that's typically what happens. Usually CISO would say, this year our goal is this, and every whole corporate need to get to that goal. But if you do assessments, you have tailored roadmaps, you have tailored goals, and it makes it more manageable. And we have tools, but we also have just the Excel files, Google Sheet files, which is automatically created from that model in GitHub. And Excel file helps you to assess. It shows exactly the criteria, and it has some tabs where you can see spiderweb diagrams, pie charts, showing exactly how mature you are where. And usually I will just take a screenshot, put it into presentation, and people will see how is that scope doing. That's the simplest way to start. But when you go more advanced, like OpenSAMI can help because they support creating scopes and doing the project management part of it as well. So you can add users to OpenSAMI and invite your collaborators and assign a tasks for improvement, etc. Now, for benchmarking, BSIM's biggest advantage in the past was that they have data of other companies and they can exactly tell you how it's being done and who is doing what. But in SAM, we also doing our best to collect insights. We anonymously collect data from practitioners after they get permission from their employer, and we categorize it per industry. And if at oasam.org under benchmark subpage, you can see a detailed report which we prepare every year and explains exactly what are the most common activities, what is the least common, and per industry, which industry is doing what. It's quite interesting. So when you doing your maturity, it's a very good insight that helps you with the prioritization. Here, just mentioned, so the BSIM has more than 130 organizations that they compare you towards, and OASAM has anonymized data with showing exactly for each category what are the scores per industry. And finally, I would say a very important step, you want to improve. I hope your goal is to improve and not just to answer sales standards questions or audit questions. How you can do that with OASAM under every activity, there's explanation of what's actually the benefit of the activity. There's a detailed description what is expected from you, like a couple of paragraphs telling that. There are questions for assessment, so exactly what you need to ask the person in front of you to understand if they are doing this right. Quality criteria, and they have linked to community guidance to improve. So it goes to separate page with all the recommendations they have, plus we have conversations on GitHub where you can also contribute back and forth. And there's a Slack channel, and we meet monthly, so you can join and share your challenges. When I started, I would come every month to the meetup online and tell, look, now I'm trying to convince my management to use this. Now I'm dealing with is not applicable challenge that some departments say it's not applicable for them, like operations. And people who are in this call, they already went through this and they're really helpful. And on BSIM side, you have also industry-best experts in SSDLC. If your company is willing to have professional help, you approach them, they prepare the report, but they're also there to help you to get better and to plan your stuff and support you with tooling, with expertise, etc. Depends what you want. Do it all yourself or hire professionals. Now, this will be my last slide, and I know my presentation will be a bit short today. What I suggest you to do, for sure, look at oasam.org or BSIM and understand what works for you better. Maybe talk with your colleagues, because today, if you walk downstairs at the expo, every company there will say that you need to use their product or do that activity. And lots of roadmap that you are asked to be doing as security activity, it's influenced significantly by marketing. Like this year it's AI, previous years SCA and etc. And suddenly your CISO will say, oh, I heard that this is a very hot topic, are we doing this? Like, what do we need to do that? But in fact, instead of being influenced by that noise, you should know where you are. You need to assess yourself, have a clear picture, do your prioritization and choose what makes sense for you. Maybe you're not going to have proper third-party components security because you have very old Fortran code, but you can control it by maybe sandboxing that app and protecting it very well in other ways, but you have other means to do stuff, and you don't have to just jump because everybody says you need to do that. So it's important that you go first here, and if you want to implement Dust, before checking the products, go to SAM or BSIM and say what others are doing, what challenges they have. Make your opinion, and then go look for the product. So step one, please have a look at this and make it your go-to place first if you want to improvements. And discuss with your stakeholders. Ask around people. If you have a policy, just go to one of teams and ask, are you doing this policy? So what is the situation here? Discover you will be disappointed because most likely these policies are not followed. Go back to your manager and say, look, actually we are not doing this and that. Shall we have some improvement program? I would like to lead that because it's always good to have a big picture and do more than what asked from you to contribute to your company. Then, in a longer period, in 3 months, try to do actual assessment. So after discussing this stuff and being a bit aware, try to do it with a SAM if you want, if you can. If not, maybe you can try to convince to invite BSIM. If your company has budget for that, it will be even easier. Maybe you are not confident to do the interviews. Not everybody is comfortable facilitating interviews. You need to approach people from governance, responsible for management. You need to approach developers, DevOps, operations. It's tough, and you need to be brave to talk with them. If it's not your thing, maybe you can still convince to use BSIM. Define your maturity goals, so where you want to be, and just start implementing small steps of improvements. And I also want to say that remember that this is a continuous journey. So it's about where you want to be and not one-time exam. And improving your SDLC maturity, it's not one-time thing. You need to think about it, reassess yourself, and make a plan. After some time, again, reassess yourself and define the next steps. All right, so that was what I wanted to share with you today. And thank you all for being here. And I would like to open the floor for comments or questions. Yeah.
Is there, is there any information out there about which of these models actually results in better outcomes?
Results in independent?
Results in which of these models actually results in better outcomes in terms of the quality of your software security?
Yeah. So they have small difference. They have common roots, and the outcomes depends on the interest of a company to improve. So you can use both models equally useful way. So I don't think that one is will bring you to the better position than other. They are very similar. Just one is you do it yourself, and other you hire a big company to do it for you.
Okay.
But can be biased. I'm a member of OWASP SAM core team, and because we are trying to also give you the steps and show you how to do it properly, if you're doing yourself, probably OWASP SAM will be easier for you to follow.
Yeah, but so one is potentially more expensive, right? BSIM, you're hiring third parties and all of that stuff, and
yeah.
So if you're in a corporate setting, you have to make a decision which is going to help me better accomplish my goals. Am I going to get the ROI of going the BSIM route versus the SAM route?
So if you have a good generalist person in AppSec team, person who likes to create communities, talk around, and open the doors and run this stuff, SAM can work, but it's not always a fact. So if you don't, and you want to, if you have budget, BSIMM can work. Lots of companies, so there are open source tools for SCA, like you can use OWASP Dependency Track, amazing tool. It works very well, better than lots of paid products. But lots of companies don't want Dependency Track, OWASP Dependency Track, because you have to maintain. If there is a bug, nobody can like jump in and fix it. So companies prefer to pay and have somebody back it up. So it depends a bit on the appetite of your company. Do you want to have someone back it up and support you in this process? Or do you have someone very enthusiastic in the AppSec team that just curious and want to learn and do stuff? Because you will have to learn a lot of things. I have developer background and I'm specialized on development processes, but when I started to use SAM, I had to figure out what are the risk criteria, risk profiles, how to do the operations properly, DevOps. So you continuously learning and you talking with people, but it's you need to have this in you, or you need to have someone in team who is curious and willing to run this whole thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for your presentations, very useful. For example, some enterprises are aligned, for example, to CIS controls. In this case, for example, which of one is better fit for that kind, for example, for that framework for CIS?
Mm-hmm. As a lot of companies have goals to be compliant with CIS or some NIST, and they do, their customers ask them, can you tell me how good you are in this compliance? What I say is that SAM or BSIMM helps you to be ready for this. So we would have different views. So we have a documentation based on NIST framework and list of what we do. But to implement them, I'm using SAM to get there. And I would actually prioritize, or once I assess, and when I make a roadmap, I do my roadmap based on my needs. If my needs are be compliant with this framework or ISO framework, I would define my roadmap accordingly.
Okay, thank you.
So maybe a little bit of an expansion on that. How have you seen people integrate at least SAM into with SSDF and like NIST 218 if they want to pursue? How do those coexist? Because I actually like that even for this you say, or a combination of both, right? It's really based on the organization. And to the gentleman's question, like if you want to go out and pay for it, like if you need that external buy-in sometimes. But how have you seen SSDF play into a merge with SAM and to support what you've already self-attested to almost and aligned to it?
Yeah, thanks for this question. That it's good for others to know as well. So probably if you approach your CISO and say, I want to use SAM, it makes sense. And they will tell you, but we base our policy on SSDF. SSDF also defines secure development lifecycle. And that is supported by US government, and by this institute. Why we're going to use this publicly made thing while we have this government defined, properly defined process by researchers. And that's a good point. But why I can tell you that SSDF, it's like audit question. It's yes, no, are you doing this or not? There is no explanation how you're going to do it. There are no levels. It says you are supposed to take care of your third-party component security, but how? In SAM, it says, hey, level 1, you don't have any. Level 1, just make sure you have a way to find them. Level 2, have tools. Level 3, so it's in SSDF, you just say, yes, I do it, or no, I don't. Probably you'll say, yes, I do it, and then point to some policy that says you should supposed to be doing, and half of the organization will not be doing it even. And that's what SSDF. But with SAM, it's for you, and there's should be really good trust between assessor and the people, because it can really expose you. You might be really concerned because you will understand that policies are not followed in the organization. And SAM is about, BSIMM about improvement, and SSDF is about just verifying where you are. It's a control framework.
Gotcha. One follow-up, if that's okay. So we've done BSIMMs in the past, and we've actually at different companies, we've done it against targeted teams or business units to benchmark different departments.
Yeah.
With SAM, which is what we're considering upcoming for my current organization, have you seen that hybrid approach, or is it like, do you look at the organizational as a whole, and then if there's variance, does that count as like, okay, that's a knock to maturity, or do you recommend isolating? Like how do you most see people implement that?
The recommended way is to define scopes before you assess, and scopes can represent whole department or product line, but the most reasonable way to separate into scopes of assessment is to see which teams share same development life cycle. If you acquired a couple of companies, merge them together, and one is using GitHub and their own version control, their pipeline, and doing stuff like with own tooling, maybe different technology, but same practices, and others completely different issue tracking system, totally different practices to different architects, you can separate and assess them separately. It's better to assess them separately. Okay. But the goal here is not to reach 3.0. You can go from 0 to 3.0 at SAM, at least. The goal is not to reach perfect score. The goal is to reach your target score. So like, you're supposed to define where you want to be for every activity. If you have on-premise software, you don't have to take care of operations. So your target score is 0. And you need to see how close you are to target, the percentage to target. And you can see that in OpenSAM tool, for example. You define the target score and shows you, all right, so this scope, these teams are 20% before target. They need to work a bit more. And others, average might be much higher, but they can be like 40% under target because they make a product that is exposed to internet and they have more API endpoints, so their target is much higher. But other small tool that you use on the backend for log analysis maybe have really small target. And yes, scopes is a recommended way. You can do like just overall assessment of whole organization, but doesn't show anything. Yeah. It's like, no, it's not meaningful. It's just good for your presentation as of curiosity, but it's not meaningful, it's not actionable.
Makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the presentation. So you brought out the issue that many of us might have, that even though we have a policy, it is not uniformly followed in all of the teams. So does either of these models provide this kind of a team-specific view or could you a bit elaborate on that? You hinted at that.
Yes.
But how does that work in each of these models?
So, because you're defining scope, your scope can be that group of products that share same technology and same processes, and you can assess them. But you can go to a team level, especially if you're doing self-assessment. I approach teams, and you can use just Excel files per team. I say, okay, this is your assessment, and here's your interview results, and here are your spider web diagram showing your maturity, and in another Excel tab, you also add the roadmap. It's all in one place. And in the BCM as well, it's number of assessments. You just have to pay a bit extra. They do more service. It's fine. But then they show you per team situation.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah. Anybody else curious? I really recommend to join this conversation channel we have for this session, and if you have follow-up questions, I will be following this channel in a future months. So if you have questions, you can type text there. But otherwise, you can join the open source community Slack channel or join our meetup calls. They're also on the website, and we are happy to help you to do that because we are doing this for community, and we want you to contribute as well. There are any more questions? If not, I would like to thank you for being here today. Yeah.